A very good afternoon. Probably since morning we have been hearing certain buzzwords, HR, automation, digital. This session could be slightly different. Probably the focus would be on compliance. Right. So I'm Varadan. I represent Aparajitha Corporate Services, and we provide, in fact, labor law compliance services across India. And we sometime started in 2000, so we are just 23 years old. And we too realized the importance of the digitization. So probably we have now moved on to come up with compliance products, particularly on labor laws. So we have now acquired Simpliance, which is a digitized compliance tools they have. So now Aparajitha continues with providing the traditional labor law services as well as the compliance products now. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Retailers Association of India for having me here, both on behalf of my own and on behalf of my company, and having provided excellent panel of experts. And the topic for this session is Retail Compliance 2023 and beyond. I think only yesterday we heard from our Honorable Prime Minister. So India's flight to moon and beyond. So it is Retail Compliance 2023 and beyond. Honestly speaking, in fact, when we say retail stores, even if it is a single store or a part of a big corporate having a chain of stores, each of these stores will be considered as a shop normally. So the governing legislation for that would continue to be the State-Specific Shops and Establishments Act. So from looking at it from the HR compliance perspective, I don't think there are exclusive compliance activities for the retail industry. So it will come under the common pool only as a shop. And of course, that would continue to be the governing legislation and the allied legislations, the security, social security legislations like PF, ESI, wages legislations, payment of wages, minimum wages, payment of bonus, all those things will continue to apply. That is how it is. And I think the time allotted for us is 40 minutes. I'm not very sure whether we will be able to comprehensively cover the entire set of labor laws. So what we have planned is we have chosen some key areas like labor codes, wages, sexual harassment, and apprentices. Probably we'll be focusing on that. And before getting into the core area, probably I would like to go to Dr. Sengupta, being the Chief Legal Officer. Sir, how would you advise your HR colleagues on the best approach to ensure legal compliances in these complex times? So when I say complex times, you are aware there are rapid legislative changes. There are situations like pandemic, and of course the business environment is, as everybody always says, it is constantly ever changing. So how would you advise your HR experts?
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
So my perception as a legal professional is that the labor laws is perhaps not one of the top of mind exciting items for our HR colleagues. I could be wrong, but it seems to me that way. So I will provide some insight into this entire thing. So I would like to ask you, where do all these laws come from in the first place? This law, this act, that act, those rules, these regulations, from where are they coming? They're not coming from parliament. They're not coming from the state legislatures. You know where they come from? They come from Article 43 of the Constitution of India. And you must listen to this, okay? As HR professionals, you must listen to this. See the wording of the Constitution, okay? The Constitution is the document for all of us citizens in India. It says the state meaning the authorities, shall by suitable legislation ensure a living wage, conditions of work, ensuring a decent standard of life, and full enjoyment of leisure and social and cultural opportunities to all citizens. Okay, this is mentioned in the Constitution as a directive principle of state policy, Article 43. Okay, so as HR professionals, please keep this as mind. Even legal professionals, for legal professionals also, it may not be very top of mind. This is no act, this is no code. Okay, it's the Constitution of India. So suitable legislation, living wage, working conditions, decent standard of life, full enjoyment of leisure and social and cultural opportunities. My eyes keep going to this. Okay, so just keep this in mind for your organizations. Then you may also find where all these, why the central government, why the center is making a law, the state makes something similar. Okay, you have, you may find that there are some kind of acts on the same thing from the center and the state. Why? Okay, then this again comes from the Constitution. If you see the 7th schedule, it specifies which kind of areas the center can legislate on, that is the Union, the Parliament of India, which areas of law exclusively the states can legislate. Okay, so that's list 1, list 2. Okay, list 1 is center specific, list 2 state specific, and there's a list 3, a concurrent list, which says that both the state and the center can make laws regarding the topic. So the concurrent list is where all these labor laws flow. And if you see that, it says item 24 of the 7th schedule, list 3, concurrent list. Welfare of labor, including conditions of work, provident funds, employer's liability, workman's compensation, invalidity and old age pensions, and maternity benefits. Now, this is all inclusive. It includes these things. It can stretch beyond these things. This is where all the laws are coming from. So we must keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to compliance, I will bucket into 7 areas what you need to do as an HR function, what an organization needs to do to ensure compliance with labor laws. Very quick tips. It's seven things. Okay, you pay out something, wages, contributions. There's a payout. You pay out stuff. You maintain stuff. Okay, records, registers, some kind of something that you can refer to, something that's auditable, and so on. So this is maintaining stuff. Then displaying stuff. Okay, extracts of law mean maybe have to put up on a notice board or on a website or both. So you display stuff. Okay, then you file stuff, returns, reports, and so on. Then you grant stuff, leave, holidays, breaks, that kind of thing. You need to grant. Okay. Then you need to provide physical infrastructure. Rest areas, dining areas, restrooms, creches, that kind of thing. So this is physical infrastructure. You provide these. And lastly, safety. That's physical safety, and that would stretch to and include new things like the provisions of POSH. So if I have summarized 10 quick pro tips for any HR function in any organization in the retail sector. If they take care of these 10 things, you should be successful in the area of labor law compliance or legal compliance from an HR perspective. So what are those 10 things? First thing, identify what non-compliance will put your directors in jail. Step number 1. Okay, which non-compliance will have your directors arrested? That should be your first priority. Directors or even employees. Okay, second thing, what non-compliance will put your brand in negative media? Negative media attention, that's the second thing you should look at. What non-compliance will attract that kind of adverse attention from media? That's the second thing you need to check. Third thing, what non-compliance will result in money outflow, cash outflow, penalties, fines, compensation, that kind of thing. To keep, I would make a hierarchy of priorities regarding these. So ensure that these compliances are taken care of. Fourthly, have you covered all the laws or only some of the big all India ones, like the obvious ones, Provident Fund, ESIC, central laws? Have you covered only those, or have you also looked at the niche localized laws or not so prominent laws, things like labor welfare fund contributions, Mathadi workers regulations, that kind of, have you covered those as well? If you haven't, you should. Fifth, do you have any method of making, is there any possibility of making nominations under the law? If somebody is non-compliant, then you catch person X, but don't stretch your prosecution notices to person Y, Z, A, and so on. Okay, so only one, you're confining the problem to one individual. Make a nomination. If you can nominate, nominate some manager or some local guy to be responsible for compliance of all those people. Then you won't get notices from labor authorities targeted or scattershot all over the organization. Okay, sixth, can information technology help you comply with record maintenance? Record maintenance use IT tools. Okay, there are plenty available. You should look at that. Seventh, very important. Have you looked at labor laws? Have you looked at laws that appear not to be labor laws, but in fact are impacting labor or labor laws? Example, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 is a new law. Or the Indian Contract Act. You may think, okay, contracts, lawyers. No, but your appointment letter is a contract. Okay, so you should look at that as well. How about the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996? Okay, you may have an arbitration clause in case of some dispute with an employee. What about that? So all these laws are attracted. You should cross-check against these things. How about the Profession Tax Act? You may think, oh, it's a taxation thing, finance and accounts taxation. It's actually a human level thing. It's not a huge amount, but it applies to employees. How about even the SEBI regulations? Have you thought of that? Employee stock options are regulated by the SEBI regulations. You should look at those as well. So you should not confine yourselves in like what's there in the labor law book. I mean, you get books in the market, labor laws. I'm telling you, they won't cover these points. Okay, they won't cover all these areas. Then the eighth point, do you have a network of outside lawyers who can advise you on local laws and handle litigation in places that are away from your headquarters city? You may be headquartered in Mumbai, you may be headquartered in Bangalore. In some remote location, do you have a lawyer network who can attend a court hearing overnight, okay, to get your employee out of trouble? You should have that kind of network facility there. And the time to think about that is now, don't have a problem. Okay, so when you have a problem, your help is just a phone call away from your local lawyer in a remote city. A very important practical tip. Ninth point, do you have a good network of external support? Means non-lawyers, the people like consultants, liaison type people, local police, do you have contacts over there? These people can be very helpful. And lastly, my last point, the 10th point, do you have a good internal crisis management team covering colleagues in like corporate affairs, liaison, licensing, legal, and corporate communications? You should have a network ready to handle all kinds of labor issues which stem from labor law. So these are my pro tips, and I hope these are some points which can help you in your compliance function in HR. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sengupta, for that explanation. So the crux is again, it is not merely the Payment of Wages Act or the Provident Fund Act. Probably these laws, it originates because India could be a signatory for some UN resolution. So for example, to protect the dignity of women or to avoid child labor, right? So because India happens to be the signatory for these resolutions, India comes up with laws like this. In turn, we may have to follow with the compliance activities prescribed under those laws. Right, okay. So probably way back in 1988, when I got into the employment first time, I was physically handling provisions under the Apprentices Act 1961. What I understand, I think there were at that time 4 types of apprentices. Those who are from industrial training institutes, ITIs. They were called the trade apprentices. And those who have completed bachelor's in engineering, they were called graduate apprentices. Then those who have completed diploma, they were called technician apprentices. Another type of apprentice called technician, vocational apprentices, those who have completed +2, 12th standard. Right. Those were the 4 types of apprentices which a company is supposed to engage, provided the apprenticeship advisor has visited the establishment and fixed a quota for that organization. Only then as per the quota, they may have to engage such number of apprentices. That is how it was. But what I understand today, the position is slightly different. Probably I would like to listen to Dr. Sanjeev. So to what are all the establishments to which now the Apprentices Act is applicable? Is there any ratio? And are the employers allowed to exceed the ratio? And whatever good practices you have in your company, if you could share for the benefit of the audience.
Yeah, so thank you, Varadan, for giving me this opportunity. Being an HR leader, I got an opportunity to come into such an esteemed panel because maybe I may be having a what you call the background of being a PhD in law. So maybe they must be invited, but certainly I have been always, propagating apprenticeship right 12 years when I saw that apprentice came somewhere in 2014, became very popular in retail. I do remember, when this apprentice came in, I walked into my previous employer's cabin, the chairman's cabin, and told that there is an apprentice named like this thing has come in. So I still remember that he was so offensive. He said, no, we don't want to have so many unfair labor practices. Don't bring to this. We are very ethical. Believe me, it took me almost 1 month to convince him, the statutory auditors, even the board, myself, and I was able to do that. So I was the first crusader to bring name in the organization in details, maybe in 2014 onwards. So just I mean to say that the apprentices, lot of, as on today, I see that lot of the CHROs are not have much more, comfortable in taking apprentices because they feel there may be some legal hiccups, or they are not much more, comfortable with this. But I would like to say the apprentices are, not only an option, it is a mandate, right? So any organization which has employing more than 30 employee or the contractual staff have to mandatory deploy apprentices from 2.5% to 15%. Whereas you can see in the terms of, the organizations in the states, particularly like Maharashtra, we have a mandate of up to 25% to be deployed in Maharashtra state. So very other states have also come in. So that's very one important. Now, what is the percentage you can exceed upon that? Can you go up to 15%? Can you go up to 25%? There is no set guidelines from the government, but certainly the practices what I understood from, because I am working with a lot of TPAs like team leads and quests very closely, and I go to a lot of government forums where I interact with the government officials, as well as I keep on speaking on apprentices on the basically the newspapers and the other forums. So I always believe that it should be somewhere around 30%. Not more than the 30% of your total manpower. Suppose you have 100 manpower, so certainly you should have at least 3 apprentices, or if not, they cannot exceed more than 15. But at a maximum, you can take all apprentices together. Maybe it may be WBL, it is coming, we as V8 or NEEMS or NATS or NAPS. These are all apprentice programs which has come in. It should not exceed 30% of your total manpower. Now, coming in terms of the apprentices, what I rightly said, apprentice is still considered as, a place where you can take school dropouts or the college dropouts and an apprentice. Apprenticeship is not still an aspirational, the career people wants to take it. Why? Because they don't feel that after doing the apprentices, whether they will be taken care by the organizations, right? And in our Pepe, what we do is that for apprentice, we deploy almost 15 to 20% of the employees on the apprentices. What we have done is we have done a career progression. One thing is that we don't discriminate between the apprentices, the outsourced and the regular employees. We consider them at par in terms of the increments, in terms of giving them the benefits, the trainings, whatever it is, we consider them at par. But main part of the issues are there, the attrition rate is very high. I can see there are 30 to 50% of attrition rates coming in. So that is the main problem. Simultaneously, I've seen a lot of companies only take this, to be very honest and humble to all of you, that we take the apprentice only because it's an cost effective. Or some bigger organization who takes it, that it gives a CSR, the benefit. But see, we should look beyond this. We have to see that how these apprentices can be groomed to be taken over into the employment, or how these apprentices can be even the educational institution where they can be given the priority, or how these apprentices can be incentivized, even given more salaries other than what we are giving to the minimum wages to them. That is what I want to say.
Thank you, sir. And probably one more question. How do you see this as part of skill development?
Yeah, see, the main purpose of apprentice was to make the unskilled workforce as employable, more employable. That was, I think, the theme line which the government brought in. Today, we have almost 15 lakhs apprentices working in all India. I can just tell you one of the skill development exercise depends on the, the government intent. We have a program known as May. I don't know, some of must be remembering. May is something like a Mukhyamantri Apprentice Yojana in Gujarat. You will not believe Gujarat has become one of the major state after Maharashtra. This is one of the number one state who have deployed the maximum apprentices. What they have done is that the intent was so severe that they have given the incentives to the employers apart from what the NAPs and benefits we are getting from the government. Even you can see the chief secretary level, even you can see from the DC level, they were decentralized to give them more benefits to the skill levels. So the scalability in terms of the skillness is going to be, I understand the government and the central government and the honorable PM also has got these things, and we all being an responsible organization always have a responsibility towards deploying more and more, making more skilled people coming in. And this skill, I'm talking an apprentice because it works a very good talent pool for all of us. So I feel a very great future in coming years.
Yes, sir. Probably what I understand is earlier it was under labor domain, and currently I think it has moved out of the purview of Ministry of Labor and Employment, but it is under skill development. That is the reason I specifically asked that question for you.
See, when this apprentice came, there were a lot of programs came. NEEM came, NAPS came, then NATS has come, now WBL has come, VAT schemes have come. What has happened? All these ministries were working in different, maybe Ministry of Skill Development, Ministry of Education, AICT. They were all governing and they were not talking to each other. And in this, some of the organizations or some of the people must have taken the undue advantage of it. But recently what they have done, they have unified it. Now, also they have made it very seamless and they have made it the onboarding unified, right? Now the onboarding has started happening. Now there is a one portal, let it be on any NAP scheme, so NEEM scheme, everything is there. NEEM, though it has been discontinued, but there are other schemes coming in. In terms of the applicability of this, you can just find that basically what skillless, what I'm finding a difficulty is that the women apprentices are still very, there is a dearth of women apprentices. There are, if you see the in totality in India, there are less than 20% of the women apprentices working across India. So that is a sign where we need to push in, and I think this skillless will have a great opportunity in India.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for that explanation. And during pandemic, I think we experienced it for 2 to 3 years. I think I had chance to address a lot of sessions on labor codes. Unfortunately, it is yet to see the light. Let us hope at least in 2024 that will be through. And there are a lot of plus points if it is implemented, particularly for the employers, right? I think there are a lot of advantages for workmen to employees and the government authorities, because these are all the three main stakeholders when it comes to the question of labor laws. A lot of terms will have common definitions under labor codes. And the number of legislations, 29 existing legislations getting subsumed into just 4 codes. The number of sections coming down, number of rules coming down, number of transactional compliance tasks coming down. All those are plus points once the labor codes are implemented. The key term is wages again. I think many of you must be aware. Currently, yes, the term has different definitions under different legislation under labor domain itself. Now, I think through labor codes, the attempt is made to make it uniform, to bring a common definition for the term wages. Probably I will now go to Mr. Prabhakar. If you could throw some light on wages, because I strongly believe if a company has a proper wage structure, I would say 50 to 60% of the compliance is done, because that will take care of the provisions of Minimum Wages Act. That will take care of the provisions of the Payment of Wages Act, PF, ESI, bonus, gratuity. right? So for all these things, no, the base is the wage structure. Probably if we could explain just particularly, can we have CTC as a consideration in the contract of employment, appointment order? Is there a difference between basic and allowance? Right? And some of the companies have the practice of paying bonus on a monthly basis, whereas as per the Act, it should be after finalizing the accounts, after the end of the accounting year. Of course, if we had made any customary or festival bonus payment, then that can be adjusted against that payment. Right? So probably if you could throw your views on that for the benefit of the participants.
Thanks, Varadan.
Yeah.
So I will first talk about the CTC part because you mentioned about the CTC. And you know, when I started career, that time the negotiation was based on the gross salary, not on the basis of a CTC. But currently, if you ask the recruiter, when they recruit a new employee, so they negotiate on the basis of CTC only. So CTC, we will all will be surprised that CTC concept has been clarified by the PF department, Provident Fund department. And this concept, through their circular in 2014, they thrown a light on this thing, CTC particularly, because there was a misconception in the field staff, particularly the Provident Fund department. They used to demand Provident Fund on the CTC. That was the scenario. And what they were saying, now the employer is paying PF contribution, but that is a deduction from the salary. It is not actually a CTC. That was the like a misunderstanding they were carrying. So PF department came forward with a clarification on the CTC. They said, what is CTC? So cost to the company. It's a cost to the company. So they said, whatever like cost incurred by the employer and employer on an employee over the period of a year, okay? The sum total of that is the cost, the expenditure incurred by the employer is the cost to the company. So the company incur expenses on traveling, company expenses, incur expenses on insurance, company incur expenses on other areas like a car also. So everything comes under the CTC. Whatever the expenses done by the employer on an employee over the period of a year, it's a year what they said. During the course of the employment, it's a CTC. Now, if you go through the Provident Fund Act, there is a definition of wage given under, not wage, is the basic wage given under the Provident Act. There is no definition. In fact, I want to tell you that there is no definition of a wage under Provident Fund Act. As you said, now there is a like under new labor code, we have a standard one definition for the wage. But earlier that was not the scenario. So under Provident Fund, the basic wage has been defined, and it said that the total remuneration received by way of salaries and allowances, that amounts to the basic wage, but it excludes certain things. What it excludes? It excludes your dearness allowance, it excludes your house rent allowance, it excludes your conveyance, it excludes your bonus amount, it excludes your overtime. So it excludes the cost of housing accommodation provided. So all these are exclusions under the PF Act. And surprisingly, the dearness allowance was included again under Section 6 under the contribution, where it is said your contribution should be 12% on a basic, and it includes the dearness allowance. So dearness allowance is now part of a basic wage. So the emoluments, the total remuneration received by this thing, it includes your bonus, it includes your incentive, it includes your overtime, it includes your conveyance, everything comes under the CTC. But other than this thing, this is not only the CTC, other than whatever the employer is incurring as a cost, it is a cost to the company. And that is the concept of a cost to the company. Now, PF department has realized that, and they issued the circular to their authorities, their field staff. And further, they clarified that though like there is a contribution employer gives on a Provident Fund, it is a part of a CTC, it is not part of a basic wage. That further clarified under that circular. Now, PF contribution by the employer is separately mentioned under the balance sheet. If you see balance sheet, that is separately given under the balance sheet. It is a separate component altogether. It's a never be a part of your basic wage. So that has been clarified. However, thereafter, the things evolved, and there were so many cases at High Court and everything, whether this allowance comes under the basic wage, whether this allowance comes under the basic wage. There's a famous case of a bridge roof, then Manipal Manipal Education Academy, where the Supreme Court and the High Court throws the idea on the what comes under the basic wage. And wage, in fact, is a very complex and vast. You require a separate session on a wage, particularly, and so many Supreme Court judgments on a wage, and what comes under wage, what doesn't come under a wage. So it requires a separate session on a wage. So recently in 2019, in a Surya Roshni and this Vinayak Kanyamandir's case plus Saint Govind. So there are 2-3 other this thing also, respondent companies, wherein the Supreme Court gave a judgment what comes under the basic wage. Okay, very clear cut this thing, judgment given by the Supreme Court, wherein it is mentioned that whatever, there is a test of universality, okay, wherein whatever uniformly or necessarily paid to the employee, okay, under the terms of a contract, very important. So that is a basic wage, okay. So whatever the allowances you are paying, to all employees across the board, that comes under the definition of a basic wage. And there are variable which is linked to your performance, variable is linked to your particular activity, like a production. If you produce something over and above your normal things, that comes there, you get a production bonus. So that is not a basic wage. If you get a attendance incentive is not part of your contract of employment, you get over and above. And everybody is not getting that attendance incentive. Therefore, it doesn't come under the definition of basic wage. So very clear thought is given by the Supreme Court. So because of that, your conveyance, your all allowances other than only the HRA, because under the definition of provident is clearly mentioned, the HRA has been excluded, your bonus has been excluded, okay, your incentive has been excluded. So these are the exclusions specifically provided. But otherwise, what are the allowances you are giving across the board to the all employees, everything comes under the definition of a basic wage. Very important. Therefore, all HR is required to if at all now because of a labor code, everybody is to relook into the salary structure of a employee, because the labor code is again going to have an impact on salary, because it says your 50% should be the basic wage, okay? And if it is 50%, so allowances should be 50%, basic wage should be 50%. So in that case, they definitely your PF liability, your bonus liability, your gratuity liability is going to, and you need to revise your salary structure accordingly. So that is what so wage is something which is still evolving. It is not like
Right, okay. Can bonus be paid on monthly basis?
Yeah, bonus can be paid on a monthly basis. That is possible. It is an advance bonus, we say, statutory bonus. But there is one risk in that. Risk in the sense it's an additional burden kind of this thing. When you pay a bonus on a monthly basis, so you under ESIC Act, under whatever you pay on a monthly basis, okay, that comes under the ESIC coverage. So when you pay a bonus, statutory bonus on a monthly basis, advance bonus on a monthly basis, so that will come under the ESIC, and obviously you have to pay the ESIC contribution on a bonus also monthly basis. That is the one disadvantage. But otherwise, the employers can pay. In fact, in a Reliance Retail, to our contract labor, we pay bonus on a monthly basis. However, in a West Bengal, there is a provision, because Durga Puja is very important for West Bengal, and where West Bengal separately came out with a notification that bonus should be paid annually. Okay, it should be paid and at the time of a Durga Puja. That is what the West Bengal said. But otherwise, all other states, you can pay bonus monthly basis, and that final bonus you can be calculated on the basis of your profit and loss account, considering set on setup, and whatever bonus comes, that can be adjusted in your final installment to the
Right,
employees.
sir. Thank you. And probably we will leave it to the participants for question, if any, on wages.
Sure.
Let us move to Umesh. It is on sexual harassment. So,
Yes, sir.
to which establishment normally this Sexual Harassment Protection, Prohibition and Redressal Act will be applicable? So, what are all the obligations for an employer if the act applies to that establishment?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Now, before I come to your to answer your question, just to give a perspective that if you see the whole statute, basis four basic principle and the broad principle, which are prevention, prohibition, redressal, and the consequences of non-compliance. Now, to address the concern, to address the basic principle of redressal, the statute provides for constituting the ICC, so the local committee or the internal committee, as the case may be. Now, as far as your question is concerned as to what is the applicability is for ICC, for internal committee is 10 worker in an organization. And if the organization does not have 10 worker, then the local committee.
Okay, okay. So in case if sexual harassment is alleged, so what is the procedure to be followed by the aggrieved woman?
So in this case, the aggrieved woman has to make a complaint in writing within a prescribed period of 3 months, and in that 3 months is not very hard timeline. The timeline can be extended if she is unable to make the complaint within the prescribed timeline. And
Okay.
the complaint can go either to the ICC or to the local committee, as the case may be.
Okay. So any other facilities to be extended to the aggrieved woman?
So if you see the aggrieved woman, you're talking about aggrieved woman, right?
Yeah.
So the aggrieved woman can basically ask for the compensation, can ask for either her transfer or the transfer of the of the accused, and she can also claim claim leave for 3 months in addition to the regular leaves which she has.
Okay. Can the complaint be filed against the employer himself? Probably board of director, MD?
Yeah, the complaint can be filed against the employer himself. However, because the conflict, the complaint has to be addressed to the local committee.
Okay, okay. So it cannot be lodged with the internal compliance committee?
No, because there is a conflict.
Okay.
So therefore, the complaint has to be addressed to local committee.
Okay. Thank you so much, Umesh.
Thanks a lot, sir.
I think we are well within time. We just thought we could take up these four main and I think each one has explained on these topics. If you have any questions specifically, either on wages or sexual harassment or on apprentices or on HR perspective, which Dr. Sengupta spoke about, we can quickly take up questions. At least one question for each panelist, if at all, if any. Any questions?
Yeah, hi, good day.
Yeah, please.
So I think you have given a good synopsis about the legal compliance. One query that has always been there in my mind is we have a lot of off-role employees too in an organization. So when it comes to specifically POSH, how do we ensure that, every employee, even off-roles, is has gone through that specific training, because reaching out to them really becomes difficult. For on-rolls, we have our own POSH committees, we have our regular trainings which happens, but what about the off-roll employees? So what can be done in that case?
So if you see, hi, thanks for the question. If you see the statute does not only apply to the on-roll employees, it also applies to off-roll employees. So, when we have to reach to the off-roll employees, you will have to, there are certain mechanism which talks about training, which talks about, making them aware as to what are the policies, what are their rights, and what are the committees which are being established. And, we need to encourage them to ensure that they reach the right forum and, put across their complaints.
So do we do it through the vendors, or how is it? If I have to ask you,
The responsibility, sorry, so I understood the question. So whether you have the company has to do it, the employer has to do it, or the vendor has to do it, the statute does not make any difference in it. The statute casts the responsibility on the employer, whether the grievance is from the regular employee or it is from the off-roll employees. The responsibility is on the employer, and therefore the company will have to do it.
See, just to supplement Umesh, if we look at the name of the legislation, sexual harassment at workplace, within brackets, Prohibition, Prevention and Redressal Act, right? So the key term is workplace. Say for example, we are here now. This place is a workplace. This is neither yours nor mine. But assume some woman here, present here, is alleging sexual harassment. Then the employer of this workplace is responsible and probably he must have an ICC. Then that ICC has to inquire into and provide solution to that woman employee. That is how it is. So it will not just stop with the regular employees or just with the off-roll employees, even outsiders, right? They will also be protected. The key term in that legislation is workplace, right? Yeah.
In a retail, Reliance, in our POSH policy, in fact, we included the customer also. So customer also can make a complaint in case she feels some uncomfortable this thing has been happened, harassment has been happened. So and then we conduct the inquiry. We conduct the inquiry through the ICC.
Yeah, thank you. Any other question? No. As the law stands today, it is not considered as wages for the purpose of PF. Sorry?
In case leave encashment paid monthly.
No, you are not supposed to pay monthly because when you say leave encashment, it will either, if you are a factory, then the payment will emanate out of the Factories Act. For you, if the Shops and Establishments Act is the governing legislation, then the payment will emanate out of that act. But both these legislations provide, I think they do not allow you to make the payment on a monthly basis. Right? The act does not contemplate that. Either Factories Act or Shops and Establishments Act.
Okay.
The leave encashment generally happens like if the person doesn't enjoy the leave and the leaves are accumulated. So next year probably the leaves can be transferred or can be encashed by the employee.
Yeah.
Certain portion of this thing can be encashed under Shop Act.
But there are differing views on this bonus, whether it is to be paid monthly, whether it can be paid monthly. There are differing views on that because bonus is supposed to be an annual payout, annual benefit. And it also depends on available surplus, allocable surplus, profitability of the company. So how can we, I mean, how can we justify if it is paid on a monthly basis?
So see, there is a minimum 8.33 bonus you are supposed to pay to the employee, okay? And anyway, you are right that the bonus get calculated once the financial year is done. But what we pay is an advance kind of a bonus, advance which is part of a 8.33 minimum bonus payable to an employee. So there is a provision wherein the government has allowed to pay the advance bonus payment, statutory bonus to the employee. So what we give is an advance statutory bonus. It is not a total statutory bonus, it's an advance statutory bonus. And once we come out with a calculation of the final figure of a bonus, whether it's 8.33%, is it 12% or 20%, maximum bonus payable is up to 20%. It depends on the kind of profit you made during that financial year. So accordingly, the final bonus get calculated and the final installment, the bonus get paid to the employee. But strictly, if you go by this thing, that is allowed under the law, you can pay monthly statutory bonus.
Yep. See, I have slightly a different view on this. Again, if you are referring to the bonus which is contemplated under the Payment of Bonus Act, again, the Act very clearly says it is going to be an annual payment. And that should be based on the profit and loss. Then based on that, that company has to decide on the percentage of bonus, which can range between 8.33 and 20. Right? If you go through section 17 of the Payment of Bonus Act, that very clearly says it permits the employers to make some customary payment, festival advance, puja advance, something like that. If some practice is there in the companies, then that amount can be adjusted when the final year-end bonus is calculated and paid. right? Now the question comes, can I, using this provision of this section 17, can I make the bonus advance or the customary payment on a monthly basis? I think we will lose rationale in it. We will not be in a position to substantiate. That is one side. Another side, when we start making the payment on a monthly basis, the assumption naturally would be it is a part of monthly salary. So if the authority raises question, then we must have clear evidence to prove that this is not part of monthly salary, whereas it is part of the annual bonus which is paid. So probably we may have to adopt proper procedure for that. The third point is, see, this practice is there in the industries for quite some time, but no authority has so far questioned it. So some of the employers are still continuing with that practice, right? So that is the position. What would be appropriate is to make the payment on an annual basis. That would be appropriate. Yeah, I think, sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah, we'll take up this last question. Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
so this is regarding the POSH policies that we have discussed. In case of someone who is alleged to harass, a co-employee is proved not guilty, is there any provision for that person to ask for like a, or is there any kind of penalty that is involved to the employer or the person who has complained about that particular person?
No, see, if it is a false allegation, then that is possible.
Correct.
Otherwise, no.
Okay, so if there is a false allegation that an employer or a co-employee has put, there is a penalty that is involved.
Yeah.
That is involved. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for your patient listening and for your questions. And once again, on behalf of the entire team, I thank REI for the opportunity given. Yeah.